Hello, everybody. Welcome to Questions on Tap, where we drink whiskey and talk about, well, just about anything. I'm John.
And I'm Mark. And today on Questions on Tap, we are going to be talking about the trolley problem. Now, a quick introduction to the trolley problem. The setup of this kind of philosophical question is you notice 5 individuals tied to some train tracks. A train is coming right at them, and you do not have the ability to untie them in time. However, you could pull a lever, diverting the train into another set of tracks, but in doing so, you would kill an innocent bystander who is tied to those tracks. Just so everybody kind of is on the same page with this, that's the setup of the problem. Now to start off, John, your views, thoughts on this question.
First, I'd like to say I think you have a lovely voiceover voice, and if you could voice over my documentary, I would have you do it.
I have been told that when I start getting too exact about what I'm saying, my tone changes. So you're probably not wrong.
You're just very calm, and I love it. Anyways, so I have the opinion, which I think most would disagree, is that in this instance, again, like you said, the trolley is headed towards the 5 people. We can save the 5 people by pulling the lever and switching to the one person. I do not pull the lever.
Oh, okay. Can I ask why?
The way I look at it is... So I guess I have 2 main points. Point 1, if I do nothing, I am not the one killing the 5 people. The trolley was already set on a course that is not my fault. If I pull the lever, I am sentencing that one person to death, and I am a murderer in that case. I am not a murderer in the case where I don't do anything. Now, the common rebuttal is going to be, well, John, that's like saying if I watch a murder happen on the streets, I don't call the police and I could have done something that, that's okay. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not entirely it. That's what point 2 comes in. Point 2 is that I subscribe to the belief, which there was a philosopher, I'm blanking on his name right now, but one of my classes I learned about this. He talked about how the weight of the world is on one scale and there's one person on the other, that the scales are still equally balanced. Because I think everyone has infinite value and stuff like that, I don't necessarily think that just because there's 5 more people on one side versus 1, that somehow the one person's needs are less than the 5 people's. They're both equally greatly in need right now.
Well, interesting. Okay. I feel like that is definitely different than the very more classic approach, which I think I would have to take. If I'm in this situation, 100% I am turning that lever. Because to me, inaction is still action. Being able to stop the trolley or move the trolley, well, you wouldn't be arrested for the murder of those 5 people or the death of those 5 people. I still think morally, you choosing not to do something is still a choice. So for me, it's kind of a simple, I don't say simple because there's too many variations on this, but it's kind of a math problem that the potential of 5 people's lives is generally larger than the potential of one person's life. And
Sure.
I think that's kind of the approach I take.
Sure, I hear you. And I think in practical sense, I totally understand. And I think, again, many would agree with you. I think my very pure, definitely more in a thought bubble kind of thing, is that life is not a math problem. The value of life cannot be quantified into a math problem. And
I'm not, and that's why I choose the word, the potential, because, you can't say that one person is worth more than the other, but if you take 5 people just out of a random batch of humanity versus one person and try to think about the stuff that they've done in their lifetime, the 5 people can likely do more good than the one person. Now, granted, if you pick the right one person or the wrong 5 people, that's obviously not right.
As I say, counter to that could be the one person could be the person to cure cancer or to, solve
but I think
any major issue, solve world hunger or something like that.
Whoever invented the polio vaccine, I don't know the person's name, but if you take a sample of them versus all of humanity, if you take 5 random people throughout all of humanity, you're going to have a greater chance to save that person than if it's the one.
Oh, 100%. I guess the thing I'm really pushing against is that kind of utilitarian, probabilistic view of the world, in which the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Because that's really what the trolley problem is getting at, is because 80% of people need something, or in this case, so 5/6, that is, a little over 80% of people
I think that's
need
math,
something. Yeah. So because over 80% of people need something, the last 15 to 18% don't matter. Because, math-wise, the majority needs something right now. And so we should provide for their needs. We should make sure that they get what they need, and if that leads to the destruction of the minority, then okay.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and I think that it's tough because I understand that, like, the whole needs of the many, that can be a really dangerous way to look at things. That can lead you down a pretty bad path. But I think this is almost different than I would say, like, the needs of the many. This is just like there's the survival of the many in a sense, which again is the same, can be similar to needs of the many. But now I know that we've these are those like the main two paths that you can kind of think about. Now I'm interested in the way that you said, and I think differs also from what I was thinking, that I think of inaction as a choice. And it sounds like you take more of a passive kind of view on this, because I think there's two ways to look at the trolley problem. It's the emotional side of, I am doing something that's changing the course of these people's lives, versus I'm not. And so I want to know your opinion on how you kind of look at that, like not choosing as a choice.
Okay, so I'd like to clarify that when I say that in this trolley problem example, someone is dying no matter what happens.
Yes.
Right, that is the
Without
premise.
Yep.
Obviously, if there was a way to do something that prevented that, I think we'd all agree that is the right decision to do that.
I would try that one.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a pretty good option. Option C. But given that there's no option C, my point on the matter is, in this specific context, that's why I put point 1 and point 2 together. Yeah. It is, my action is directly saying that one's person's life is worth less. My inaction in this instance is not saying that the 5 people's lives are worth less than the one, because I'm not the one that put the trolley on the path.
Though.
No, again, I'm not saying it's worth less. I'm saying they're worth that. Whether or not I pull the lever, I'm doing the same thing.
Well, then you could also say pulling. If you're saying that the 5 people's lives are equal to the one person's life, it sounds like that's the path you're going down.
The value, but like if this were a math equation, which it's not, but if it's a math equation, that it's like the infinity plus infinity is still infinity. You're not getting more value each person you add. Yes, you're always getting the same. You have the same infinite value, and everyone's as an individual is infinitely important. And because of that, the like math problem doesn't make sense, and that leads into the other point, which is I'm not going to legislate death on someone, because that's what I'm doing. I'm playing God in the trolley problem.
Either way, you're legislating death, though, because if we're talking about like playing God, you being there at that lever is probably not a coincidence. There's probably some scenario that led you to be there, that you have the option. Like, I think,
but you're adding a layer onto this. You're saying there's some scenario that put you there. The pureness of the trolley. If we're just looking at the pureness of the trolley problem, where you just poof there,
okay,
and you don't know how you got there. And you have this lever, and there are 5 people there and 1 person there. You're not this like godly force that gets to decide that. You had nothing to do with the situation, and either way, you're killing someone.
Yes, either way, somebody dies.
Now, in our current legal system and stuff, I would say that like if you shoot like the standing there and watching 5 people die, if we're counting that as murder, then obviously that's 5 counts versus 1 count, and that's how it should be in a legal system. But in like a pure philosophical,
getting into the legal aspect.
No. But the point of what I'm saying is that the pureness of the philosophy of this problem is this is really about whether or not 5 people equals more value than 1 person, and that's the perspective that I'm coming at this from. Is that no?
So you don't think there's any way okay.
Because the way I see the problem is that, again, it's really this case study on the needs of the many versus the needs of the few. And because of my belief system, I'm very much always lean towards the needs of the few.
Okay, so I guess what's interesting is by you saying that, like, you just, and like, as the problem is set up, that you just kind of poof, you're there, the train is going. It sounds like you're almost talking about, like, you don't want to get in the way of something that was already happening, like almost like this, not like fate kind of thing, because I don't know if either of us are fully on that path, but
yeah, I wouldn't say I believe in fate.
Okay, then I'm I didn't want to.
That's a separate conversation, but yeah, no, this is not a fate thing for me to be clear.
All right. So I want to propose another kind of situation here. I'm interested to see where your thought process diverges from mine a little bit. So, say you're driving a car. This time you're in control of the vehicle. 5 people run out of the highway. Now, say there's a pedestrian on the right on the sidewalk. You can either swerve that car into the pedestrian, kill them, or you can run over the 5 people and kill those 5 people. And let's say, in this situation, those are the 2 options. What do you think you do?
In this instance, I would swerve over.
Why?
Because in this instance, I'm the one that put the car in motion.
Elaborate. Yeah, you are. This is true. But why does that drastically change how you act?
Like, I guess, let me ask what you are. Are you looking for like a pure philosophical answer or the more practical answer?
I'm just looking for your thoughts.
Okay.
It can be either. I mean, we both think in practical and very philosophical at different times.
Yeah, so. I think in this case, because I'm the one directly driving a car on a highway or a road or something, I'm thinking more practically in this instance because it's a more likely situation.
Yeah, without a doubt.
The way I look at it is, if they run out onto the road, if I swerve over to the sidewalk and there's one person there, the probability of me not hitting them, or I can brake and not kill them, is going to be greater than it would be with the other ones. So the overall preservation of life.
I'm going to change that real quick. The brakes in your car are no longer working.
Okay.
You're going 100 miles an hour. You're not going to be able to stop in time. The situation is 5 people in front of you. They die after you hit them. Or the one person on the right side that dies after you hit them. I feel like you're trying to find these options C, D, E. Come on.
There's always another way. Those of you who listen to this podcast long enough, I always believe there's another way. Okay, there's my pure philosophical answer, and then there's the answer in which I'd actually do.
Yeah, let's hear them.
Pure philosophical answer is I don't do anything. Same as the trolley problem. I don't do anything.
Okay. Do you feel any more or less responsible?
I would say the thing that makes me question that in the philosophical ones, maybe I take that back, is because it's still me in the car. I'm the one that chose to go on the road.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that put the 5 people at risk versus the 1 person at risk.
You might not have checked the brake pads.
Yeah, no, so exactly. So actually, I'm going to change the philosophical answer then. Because the car is on the road because of me, my responsibility is now in play of this. I was not poofed into the car. If I was poofed into the car, it's the same question as a trolley problem. If I'm not poofed, there's a level of responsibility that's placed onto me as the driver, and so I swerve.
That's interesting. I feel like there's just like a gap because I think I would feel the same moral responsibility whether I'm inside that car or whether I'm on the road next to the trolley. Because to me, that like situation, I'm there, I can have an effect on it. It's not just I'm a third party observing it. There's a clear thing that I can change. I totally understand, like, yeah, the trolley's in motion. I didn't set the trolley in motion. I didn't put the people there. But I still think there's just that like difference in how we're looking at it.
Yeah, I think, look, I'm not saying I don't have those instincts too. I'm not even necessarily saying those instincts are wrong. I think it's a very gray question. It's just, I think responsibility is a huge thing here. And I think that where we're disagreeing is the level of responsibility that exists in the pureness of the trolley problem versus the car. That's where the difference lies, because that responsibility changes everything from a moral standpoint, from a pure philosophical moral standpoint. That changes things.
Yeah, and it's also, I feel like this is a good one to start off on for the podcast, because I feel like we disagree on almost every aspect of the answer.
Yes, because most of the time it's more nuanced, but in this case it's not.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, a lot of times I've talked to other people about this in the past, and when they're like, oh, well, I'd kill the one. That's a typical train of thought, I feel like.
It makes sense. I totally get it.
But then the next question is like, well, what if it's 4 versus 1, or 3 versus 1, or 2 versus 1, or what if the one is somebody you love? I feel like those are all like common things to add to it. But I feel like either way, you're just like stepping back from the lever and just like letting that trolley go.
Because again, the value of the one is not underweighted. That's not a scale to me. Or if there was a scale, they're balanced. And because of that, I guess my point is almost that it doesn't matter what I do in the trolley.
How so?
I guess that's my point. When I say that the needs of the 5 and 1 side of the scale are balanced with the needs of the 1, whether or not I pull the lever, I am committing the same sin.
Well, I mean, but if you think about the consequences of that, just like right away, if you see, like, let's like say that all of the people on the track, there's 5 guys, like 40-year-old guys, and there's one 40-year-old guy. You're leaving one kid without a dad, or potentially 5 or more, if each one of those are fathers. Like, there are consequences and are like implications in society, whether or not like the full value of their life, if we're looking at, are equal. There's still things that you're going to have to walk away with.
Parameters. You're adding parameters.
No, I'm simply saying those 5 people, like, we're not saying that those 5 people, like, they exist and they have had a life. They likely have a family, just because as a person, as a human, at some point, they've likely been close to people, had friends, maybe a family. That's an undeniable reality just about humans.
Okay, sure. So my point is that when we are discussing this problem, when I say the pureness of the trolley problem, I mean I am looking at these 6 individuals apart from anything else in the world. Apart from families, apart from social relationships.
But is that how life works?
That's why I said a pure philosophical answer. That is always how I frame this, is a pure answer to these 5 and 1 and this one individual completely separated from the world at large. It's just these people.
So so as a person, if you're in this situation.
So if this is a more practical situation where I'm at the trolley lever, I pull the lever.
Oh. Okay.
But in a philosophical sense, if they're removed, if we're taking away the social stuff, the practical elements, because there's nothing practical about the trolley problem, just popping up and there's no brakes and I have to pull a lever. Like I'm looking at this completely
I could totally
separate.
Envision that situation. Come on,
almost like The Good Place. Like
that's 100% what I'm thinking.
In my head, I'm thinking of The Good Place, and we don't know who these people are. We don't know, I don't know anything about them. I don't know, for all intents and purposes, they are blobs of life. The lack of a better term. They are blobs of life. They don't have any kind of social connection. That's how I look at the problem. If we're talking about, they have families and friends, then the way I look at it is, I'm doing the same thing, but more people are going to be hurt that are not in this situation.
Okay.
And so I pull the lever. Yeah. Because then I think about the innocent bystanders outside the trolley problem, the people that are going to have to live with it.
No, because I don't think you can fully... I was never thinking of fully separating the philosophical from the practical, because 5 people are never just going to be blobs of life. I kind of like how you said that.
But that's the fun of the... See, for me, that's like the fun of the interesting part of the trolley
if
problem.
I'm thinking about it like that, I don't know.
That's my question. If they're not removed from life, like if this is a very practical situation, they have families, kids, friends, are normal, if this is like 5 random people on the street right now that I know, it doesn't matter who they are, I know that they have people in their lives, or at least they have in the past, have been love or known love, or even if they haven't, they still deserve to know that, I pulled a lever. But if these aren't, I pulled a lever, completely agree with you, but if they are not just, again, blobs of life, then I pull it. But if they are blobs of life and there is no social connection or anything like that, then no, I don't, because it doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, the only moral decision is pulling the lever murder versus not pulling the lever. If we are saying that if not pulling the lever is the same as pulling the lever, which I still disagree with, in a sense. Like, I think the one thing you and I disagree is that by not pulling the lever in this instance, I don't think that's murder.
Yeah, I mean, I think we disagree on the action versus inaction in the whole idea.
In this case, yes. Not in general in life. I think we'd agree in life, but in this specific case.
Okay, wait. Then why? Yeah.
In this specific trolley problem case.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I also think just the whole idea of valuing like a human life, I think we're looking at it from a different perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
But I also I know from other like podcast episodes we've talked about that we're probably going to get into that a little bit in the future. Just of how we value that. But it is interesting that we're looking at a lot of it from different perspectives. And I also feel like, the idea that like your initial thought wasn't to view them as people with like a background or anything. It was just like you're thrown into it, where I think I was coming at it from more of a practical sense right off the bat. And like, that's probably,
Yeah, I guess just because of like how I've been trained in some ways when thinking about these problems is that like you pull apart the outside variables and you kind of remove them from the situation. And then what's the like pureness of the moral action going on?
Yeah, I think I was...
Now, in real life, you can't do that. And that's why, like, again, I separated it, because in real life is different than pure philosophy. Doesn't mean pure philosophy can't inform you on real life.
Oh, no, I think that's the whole fun of it, is to, like, try to figure out where those two can combine.
Yeah, and again, there's tons of overlap. But again, no kind of philosophical framework works 100% of the time in life. But if we are talking in, like, again, a bubble, in that bubble, I do think that, like, that's my answer. But not in that bubble. Okay. You and I are in complete agreement.
Yeah, but I think, because I think my answer is constant in or out of the bubble. But it seems like yours changes.
Yeah. I think the bubble changes things.
Yeah. So I think that was pretty good. I feel like it's a good one to start off on, because I feel like you guys are going to listen to two relatively different perspectives on the trolley problem.
Yeah, and I think that, like, as you listen to our podcast, you will begin to see kind of the lines in which Mark and I differ in certain areas in which we see the world, and come back and listen to this episode, and I think you'll understand why.
I'm sure once you get more context, our views will be more clear as you get a larger picture.
So, for end of today's episode, think about the trolley problem. What would you do? Thank you for coming on the trolley with us today. We'll see you in the next episode.
Have a good day, everybody.